Grateful, and it's an honor to be here today, especially I know a lot about Mr. Mathis' career, and I'm just grateful that he's sitting here. This is a day that in so many ways our ancestors are looking back and with pride. I was almost laughed, I have to be honest with you, because I was in a Foreign Relations Committee. I didn't get to watch the first part, but I heard that driving records became a part of it. And I laughed with my staff that I have a rap sheet now, probably much longer than than the witnesses. But then I thought, and I want you to answer this as much as it is going to be anecdotal. But I grew up in Bergen County, New Jersey. My family was the first black family to move in. And all my high school friends, when we started driving, started noticing that I was pulled over quite a few more times than they were. And we all knew what it was about, especially back in those days, coming over from Washington Heights. If you were driving over the GW Bridge, and my brother and I used to think if we were black, we just prepare for being pulled over. And sometimes I was pulled over for going 3 miles over the speed limit, for something cracked or that looked awry on my car, and it put me in a position where I'm much more likely to get more tickets than my white peers, my best friends. And I'm curious, is that the case with your experience as well, growing up as a young man driving while black?
I want to turn the microphone there.
Thank you, Senator Booker, for that question. I take responsibility for my actions. I don't want to blame anything or anyone else for what I did. I take complete responsibility for what I did and the circumstances that I placed myself in. That's what I'll say about that.
Sir, that is a great answer, and in many ways, the humility and respect that I think your character speaks to, and I want to just express my appreciation for that. I'd like to also, Chairman, I got a chance to witness on this committee the change on the blue slip policies, and it really was difficult for Senator Menendez and I when it came to our state. Before the Trump administration, the Senate in modern times had never confirmed a judicial nominee over the objections of both home state senators. The Congressional Research Service didn't find a single time it happened, and you could count on one hand the number of times the Senate confirmed a judicial nominee, even when one home state senator had objected. The Trump administration and the Senate Republicans didn't just break the tradition, they really smashed it. It was 17 Court of Appeals judges who lacked blue slips from their home state senators, 17. One of those was in our state. It was Paul Mathis, who now sits on the Third Circuit of my hometown in Newark. Senator Menendez and I received nothing that could even be considered meaningful consultation. At no point before Mr. Mathis' nomination did the White House offer to set up a meeting between us and the judge, the now judge. The White House never even mentioned anyone else they were considering besides Mr. Mathis. It was obvious he was the only person they would consider. And I made repeated requests for a meeting with Mr. Mathis during the confirmation process, and the administration wouldn't even let me meet with him. And that meeting only eventually happened after Mr. Mathis had already been voted out of this committee, days before his final vote. And so by contrast, even though it was the Trump administration and my colleagues on the other side of the aisle who shattered this tradition, I understand that the Biden administration has in fact engaged in meaningful outreach and consultation with home state senators about the nomination. I understand what it means when you represent a community and you're not being engaged in the process. I felt the coldness and the hardness of that. But it's one thing to shatter that, what the Trump administration did, and then ask for it to go back to the way it used to be. This is a great nominee. And I've gone deep in reading about your background and your record, and I'm blown away by the pro bono commitment that you have. And I'd like to, just my final question really, if you could tell the committee more about why you've chosen the kind of representations that you've done for individuals that often lack resources. Why is that an important value? In your view, why is ensuring that full representation for every criminal defendant, no matter how despicable sounding the charges are, why did you find it in your career when you didn't have to do these things so important to do that kind of pro bono work?
Thank you, Senator, for that question. That work is really important to me because when I was growing up, didn't have much. So when you get to a position where you can help others that don't have much, that's vitally important for me, and that's part of the reason why I take court-appointed cases and do pro bono work. Is that ability to help others that aren't in the best situations, and also as it relates to the criminal work, is the Sixth Amendment allows for individuals to have attorneys, even if they can't afford it. And I believe, based on my experience, I'm capable of helping others in that capacity.
And you're aware that tradition goes back to the Boston Massacre and the British soldiers that were represented then by one of our founding fathers, correct?
That's correct.
And you believe it so deeply, in many ways driven by your own experiences. You mentioned that you grew up with very little.
That's correct.
And this idea that the ideals of justice in this country demand that everyone has equal access to justice and equal access to justice, and the key of representation is very important to that.
There's no question about that. When you think about equal access to justice, everyone should be treated the same when they're in court. Whether you're the government or indigent defendant, whether you're an individual or a company, everyone just wants to be treated fairly, that their case is considered impartially, and everyone is treated fairly. Again, it doesn't mean you'll get a decision that's in your favor, but the key is that you felt like you've been heard. You have your opportunity to be heard, and you were treated fairly.
Well, I just want to say in conclusion, I love your state. My mom went to Fisk University. I have family roots there. I've served with a number of senators from your state, including the current ones. I actually have a lot of respect for. When they speak, I listen. You have great House members from that state, and on both sides of the aisle, people who love the community and serve it with honor and distinction. And I'm looking forward to voting for you on the floor, because I think that you will represent the best of what the great state of Tennessee is on the federal judiciary, on the circuit court. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator.